welcome back to somebody on the rest and to another edition of AEW Collision Out of 10. It's a big episode of Collision today because it's the last episode of AEW TV before Double or Nothing on a Thursday ahead of the pay-per-view. And yeah, without any technical issues halfway through the show this week, which is always good. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into things. And we skipped the usual opening video and we went right to Tony Schiavone welcoming Adam Cole, who joined the announce team. Then Tony brought out FTR and Stokely. Daniel Garcia and Dudley Magic came out next, followed by Nigel McGuinness. This was supposed to be a contract signing, but as usual it turned into an exchange of promos. Wheeler questions whether this was in Nigel's best interest considering he's not a full-time worker anymore in an attempt to scare him. Garcia says he still cares about FTR but now sees them as selfish and narcissistic. McGuinness asks FTR's word what they never talk to, touch or look at Schiavone or him ever again after Sunday. He threatened to end them for good if they didn't listen. Harwood tried one more time to talk McGuinness out of competing and then it broke down into brawl. This is obviously always going to be the way, but the crowd loved it as Garcia and Nigel had FTR locked up. There isn't the most well-developed feud on the card, but the segment did a good job with the personal grudge until security broke out. So yeah, good stuff. We then got Takeshita, Romero and Trent versus the Outrunners and Bandido. After the initial exchange, the babyfaces took control of some triple team moves that sent all three members of the Callis family outside of the ring as the show went to a break. Takeshita was one of the ones who finally gave his team the upper hand, and once he tugged into the match, he was too powerful for Bandido to handle. This was a Solos Trios match involving all six. It didn't necessarily feel like an important match, but had the crowd making a lot of noise, and that's the most important part. Lawrence Archer took Bandido behind the rest back, leaving the Outrunners outnumbered, unable to kick out. Classic heel way to get it, and like I said, the crowd was really tuned into it. It's a decent match. I'll rate it 6 out of 10. Mercedes Moné then held an open challenge for the TBS title that was answered by CMLL's Isis. They started with a nice exchange of takedowns and counters that ended in a stalemate. After a quick dance, Moné put Isis in a statement maker. But Isis broke free but was quickly taken down by the CEO. The challenger was able to hit some nice moves, but it never really felt like Moné's reign was in danger. And after a decent back and forth, she scored the win with a trademark submission to get the win, building momentum to face Jamie Hayter. And as she was celebrating, Hayter showed up on the stage and pointed at her wrist to indicate Moné was running out of time. Security ran out to get between them before a fight could happen. Yeah, I think a simple match kind of really to build up that feud, and that's exactly what we did here. It worked to a point, I guess, but didn't really affect too much the match on Saturday. I'll give it 6 out of 10. Just days before he faces Mark Briscoe in a stretch match, Carl Fletcher was in action against Jay Lethal, and Lethal went for the leg, but was back to the corner as the crowd chanted his name. Fletcher began picking him apart with various strikes, but Lethal did a quick strike before unloading on him in the corner. Once Fletcher regained control, he was much more aggressive while still taking time to gloat. When we returned for a break, it was more of the same. Fletcher was dominant, but Lethal kept himself in the fight with brief comebacks. Fletcher but there was the only one match at the pay-per-view, obviously, so the outcome was obvious. He won, but they did a good job along the way. Cole had a brief confrontation with Fletcher after the match, but O'Reilly and Strong ran down before it turned into a fight. Yeah, teasing something that would be very interesting down the line. But yeah, I think we all knew what we were getting here, and that's it proof. 6 out of 10. That led to Strong and Kyle O'Reilly staying in the ring for their match against the grizzled young vets. O'Reilly almost won early with an armbar, but Drake fought his way out as they continued to put on a fast-paced sequence. So absolutely nobody's surprised. This turned into a hard-hitting, entertaining match. Both of these teams are great at what they do, and they prove to be as good as any duo on the roster. Strong and O'Reilly will get the ring as Cole cheered them from the announce table. So yeah, good stuff, and I'd definitely like to see this maybe develop more because 2 great teams. 6 out of 10. We then got Josh Alexander taking on AR Fox. These guys were very different styles, but they are so good at what they do. They mesh well together to create an entertaining match. Alexander's time in TNA reminds everyone what he's capable of. Fox reminds us what he can do every time he steps in the ring. A pretty short match ended Alexander getting the win, but it's fun for the few minutes you got to see them work. The only complaint I would have is that I just kind of wish we got to see it a bit longer. So yeah, for that reason I'll give it a 5 out of 10. CMLL was represented this week with a trios match featuring Voldemort, Magnus and Rudijo taking on Mystico, Mascara Dorada and Tempe ROD. So these guys have made appearances in AEW before, but fans probably won't be as familiar with Tempe and Rudigo especially. The most important thing to note is that all 6 of these men have great reputations in Mexico, so it's going to be a high-flying, entertaining match. The heels tried to talk their way out, but were booed enough to get them back into the ring. Mystico tagged in for the first time to a nice reaction as he squared off against the waning man in the match without a mask. Dorada won for his team with a very entertaining sprint of a match. Yeah, to be honest, it kind of felt a bit chucked in, a bit random, but I enjoyed it on the most part, just because it was a bit fun compared to what we mostly got. I don't know a lot about a lot of the guys, really, to be honest, but I thought from what it was quite fun. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. This week's main event saw Rush and Jalisco take on Commander and Mike Bailey in a tag match. LFI got an early advantage by attacking their opponents after the bell. They took the fight out of the ring and beat them all around the ringside arena. Once Speedball and Commander regained their footing, they started to take hits to Rush and Jalisco. However, they tried one too many suicide dives and both men crashed and burned as we went to a break. The match continued to entertain when we returned and ended with Bailey and Commander getting the win, but the night wasn't over just yet. Okada showed up and Bailey offered him a bow and a handshake, but Okada flipped him off. Bailey responded with a kick to send him out of the ring, followed by a dive that took him down. The show ended with Bailey posing with the title. A great ending, a really fun match as well, and yeah, I think just hype that match, which is down to probably one of the show stealers. So yeah, great stuff to end the show. 7 out of 10, and overall Collision gets a 6 out of 10 for me. Yeah, I feel like I gave lots of 6 out of 10s for this episode of Collision, and yeah, to be honest, it was just a very bog standard, average classic episode of Collision. So lots of okay stuff, not particularly memorable, but not terrible either. And I thought, built towards a relatively decent show, but I think most of the key prep was already done.
That's it for this video. Thanks very much for watching. Remember to like, share, subscribe, follow us on our socials, link in the description below for daily wrestling news, meme and content. Subscribe to our other channels on screen right now, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thanks very much for watching. Peace out.